You ever use one of these? Some of us do this differently. You look at this and you're like, I'm going to try this based on the rules. Other people in my home go, do those stickers peel off? Right? If some of you love these things and you can solve them pretty easily, good for you. Most of us do this for maybe a few seconds, like that's how we do. We even pick it up for a few seconds and like, oh yeah, oh no, yeah, no, and we quit, right? Or you get, like me, I think the best I've done is maybe the majority of the colors on one of the sides. And then, though, most of us say, I'm not going to do that anymore. And in fact, if you're an adult now, you have probably resolved already if you will ever even try to solve this or if you're done with this, right? The reason I bring this up is this I think is a pretty decent example of life where you got a decision to make, you're doing something today or tomorrow, something comes in front of you, and it begins to feel like, well, I know what to do, and you begin to move some of the pieces that you know about. But then most oftentimes, if it's a relationship or a financial struggle or if it's really like some of the actions that we just do on a daily basis, it gets so complicated, so cumbersome, that we're like, I don't even know how to do it. And you just don't do it. And life doesn't actually have to be near. I think we treat life actually like it's too complicated, and it's not. It's difficult, yes. But it's not overly complicated. And I think I've got some proof. There's a book in the Bible that is known as aggressively going after making our walk with Jesus, a faith in God, not nearly as cumbersome and confusing. It begins to help us figure this out. It's the book of James, if you don't know that. Book of James is it's a pretty cool book. Let me give you some nerdy history for those of you who are nerds like me. If you don't know, the book of James is the first book in the New Testament that was written. You're like, but it's not before Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I'm aware of that. But around 45 to 50 AD, the book was written by the brother of Jesus, or the half-brother, however you want to look at it. So a guy that knew Jesus. And anybody who walked with Jesus, especially semi-related to him, I'd like to know what he has to say. Some about Jesus, others just about life. The book of James is considered to be, in the New Testament, the Proverbs of the New Testament. If you've never read Proverbs in the Old Testament, it's 31 chapters of just life goodness, very short, do this and it works. Do this and it works. Do this. It's very practical, Proverbs is. So is James. If you've ever tried to walk with God and it not seem very practical, where you're like, yeah, the Bible says this, but my life kind of looks like that. James says, let me bring up what's really going on in your life and teach you how to walk through that so it doesn't have to be so confusing. So let me show you where James starts. It'll be fun. He just starts off with this. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. You want to do a different series? Kind of sounds like, nah. No. You ever read the Bible and it annoy you? If you're not willing to admit it, I will. And it stinks when someone's starting off a letter or a book and starts off going, hey, here, let's go where life really is going. You have troubles and you need to consider them opportunities of great joy. Meanwhile, most of us are don't relate whatsoever to that. During this series, we're going to do several what's called word studies. That's where I take the original Greek and translate it for us all and help us figure this out. So let me show you a word study. That brought up the word trouble. So you heard that and read that. Troubles. That you and I are supposed to take our troubles and be like, this is amazing. I'm so excited for this. No, so troubles in the original language, the original hearers would have heard it in this language, and it was meant this way. An experiment, a trial, a proving, and I want to really harp on proving. Many of the things going on in your life right now that you don't like, that I don't like, that we would say, not the option I would have chosen. Many of them are not God trying to beat you up. It's not God ignoring you. It's a proving time. So it's okay to say, I don't love it. But we've got to talk about some really honesty stuff about trials. Trials are not a waste of time. We need to stop calling them that. When we have our problems, we don't typically say, so glad this showed up today, because this is when I wanted it. Right? We consider it, for the most part, any problem you and I face to be a complete, utter waste of time. If you treat it that way, you will waste time. So whatever you're going through right now, or whatever you do go through, whatever you just came out of, I can assure you of something. It was not designed to be a waste of time where God was just trying to pause you for no reason. In fact, I can tell you the lesson. If you don't want to listen to the rest of the sermon, probably shouldn't do that, but oh well. God cares more about the quality of your character than the difficulty of your circumstances. I'm gonna have a dad talk with you today, okay? Now, by the way, for those of you who like to jump to conclusions, I did not just say that the difficulty of your circumstances don't matter to God. I said the quality of your character is more important to him. For you know that when your faith is tested, see, he didn't just say, hey, you're gonna have problems, there are opportunities, deal with it. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Just stop for a second. Whatever you're going through right now is not a waste of time. God sees it most likely as, I can grow you, I can strengthen you, and you need it. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Now, modern day American Christians see, I'll be perfect? I don't think so. Let's go back to doing a word study, and this will help us a little bit. Perfect and complete. The original language says things like this. The original hearers would have heard, you will be mature and free from sin. Now, there's still a problem nowadays, because most of it say free from sin. Oh, David, you don't know who I live with. They make me sin. You don't know where I work. David, come on, everyone's imperfect. Sin is just natural, not according to God. And one of the greatest traps of the devil is to tell you that sin is so common, you should expect it and welcome it into your life. Meanwhile, in the midst of our trials, and why does God even allow temptations? God is trying to grow us up. If you've ever wondered, why does God let certain things happen? He knows it can prove something in you. It can grow something in you and get your roots to where they need to be so he can take you to where you want to be and where he wants you to be. Exodus 13, God, he's freeing these slaves who have been slaves forever, like just 400 plus years. They've been slaves. God frees them from slavery. It's really cool. The Israelites left Sukkoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went ahead of them. He's freed them. He's walking them out into freedom. This is awesome. He guided them during the day with a pillar of cloud. We'll talk about this. And he provided light at night with a pillar of fire. This allowed them to travel by day or by night. Have you ever prayed for that? I have. Have you ever, you've got a decision to make, you're processing something? God, all I need from you is a pillar of fire. Just set it over that person's head, and that's who I will marry. Just do that. Or which house to buy, or where to move, or which job to take. Have you ever wanted that from God? Like that he would just literally, physically, either speak, which would freak us out, or put something out. Give me a sign in the sky. And the Israelites got it. So unfair. So unfair. But if you're thinking, this is not metaphorical. They literally woke up. Where do we go? Follow that. Some days I just want that kind of decision making. Just follow that thing. I mean, so God frees them from slavery, horrible. They were mistreated, abused. It was absolutely horrific, and frees them. And not only does he free them, he basically holds their hand, says, come this way. I mean, it sounds like God is so close to them and loves them and cares for them, right? It's in your private prayer time, what you ask of God and want of God. It seems like, yeah, that's what I want. God, hold my hand in a cloud and fire. That'd be cool too. But just, can we have that relationship, God? Well, you're going to think that's all God if you don't keep reading the Bible. Hopefully you're aware of what God does next after he's holding their hand. The next chapter, then the Lord gave these instructions to Moses. Order the Israelites, who I just freed from slavery, to turn back. Tells them to camp at a bunch of stuff. I don't like camping, so I took it out of there. So he tells Moses, hey, you know all these people that I just freed? Turn them around. Head them back towards their enslavers. Then Pharaoh will think the Israelites are confused, because they will be. The Israelites are confused. They are trapped in the wilderness. And once again, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. Aren't you excited? I have planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After this, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped there as they were told. Let me help you understand exactly what just happened. God's like, I'm freeing you. All your prayers for centuries I have answered. And not only have I freed you, let me hold your hand, pillar of fire or cloud, depending on the nighttime or the daytime. This is going to be easy and epic. And they're like, see, we love God. Isn't he nice? Isn't he nice that he's doing this? Right? Then all of a sudden Moses says, hey, everybody, chill out for a second. God wants us to turn around and go back towards the Egyptians. I just mess with some of your views of God. Because many of you say, God would never do that. God would never walk these nice, innocent people that he freed back into trouble. He did just that. He freed them from slavery and said, all right, let's go back. I want to show off for a little bit. Why would he do that? Most theologians believe very simple. They weren't ready. If you read, you'll learn they weren't ready. God was going to take them to a land that he had promised them and that they were so excited about. It had been written about. They had studied it, memorized it, sang songs about it. They were going to a place God was going to prepare for them. And they were excited, but they weren't ready for it. They proved that over and over and over and over and over and over again. They weren't ready. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. You're not ready for everything in your life that you're going to face. You're not. And the things that you face now are designed to get your roots a little bit deeper, a little bit stronger. Because who you are becoming is important to God. I want to tell you something. September 17th at 11:20 a.m. Our son Hayden, our oldest son, if you don't know who he is, was driving down a road we call Mount Rushmore Road on his way to the barber. He was planning to get his senior pictures not too long from them, and so he had the day off from school and was going to get his hair cut. Someone ran a red light and hit him really hard. The problem with this scenario isn't just that his car got hit and him being in it and that being a first-time experience. If you've ever been in a car accident, you know how no matter how slow or fast, it's just violent. It's a senior year. The car that you are seeing is a car he saved up for. We shopped and shopped and shopped, and when you're 16 and 17 years old and you're saving money, your options of cars are limited. Because we're a family that we try not to do any debt at all. And so we're like, here's what you got. And God provided it in such a cool way. I mean, it was like a gift from the Lord. Nice Honda Civic. And for guys like Hayden and I that are a certain height, they're fun to watch us drive in those things. But he was proud. I don't know if you remember your first car, if you ever had a first car. Most of us regret ever getting rid of our first cars. We're like, I wish I still had that kind of thing, even though it was probably a piece of trash. Yeah. He was so proud of it. In fact, sometimes when we couldn't find Hayden in the house, Hayden was sitting in his car listening to music, doing whatever teenagers do in the car or whatever in the driveway. So within a second, at no fault of his own, that car is no longer an option. Airbags deploy, if you don't know anything. If they all deploy, that car be done. And it was done. At the time, Katie and I and her parents, we were all out near Sylvan Lake. If you've ever tried to use a cell phone near Sylvan Lake, good luck on that one. Well, to complicate everything, we weren't with them, but that car wreck took away his independence for a little bit. A week later, he would find out that he tested positive for COVID, which then put him in his room by himself, dwelling on, I don't have a car anymore. And I kind of feel yucky. He began to miss football games. Hayden was one of the captains of his football team. Senior. Started every game this year. It was his year. And I remember getting a text. Sent it to, our family, we're very open with each other. We have a family group text. Everyone sees it. And he simply wrote, why is everything getting ripped from my hands this year? His health, football, car. Now grades were a struggle because he had missed so much school. Why is everything getting ripped from my hands? It led me to a question. He asked it, but I think you do too. What do we do with trials and temptations? What's a Christian's response? Someone who says, I love Jesus. I like him. What's our response when we face this stuff? The car story may not be a big deal to you, but I tell you, I assure you, to a 17, 18-year-old, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to him in his life. You've got your biggest thing that's ever happened. What do you do? Like, James, would you help us, please? And he does. James chapter 1. If you need wisdom, just leaving room for amens, but it's fine. It's fine. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God. Now, some of you are already forgetting what we've been learning. We've been learning that technically God says, he told James to write this, that when you have trials, you should consider them opportunities of great joy. Yay! If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, the God who is allowing what you're going through. Don't disconnect some of this. And he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking for wisdom. But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. If you don't understand what he just said, he's like, don't just ask him for advice and decide if you like it or not. You ever had that happen to you? Every parent has. Every boss has. What should I do? Don't like that. God's saying that. Don't ask me for wisdom and then think that your wisdom is better than his. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. God is always rooting for you, whether or not you see it. So I'm going to take you into something very personal. I've asked permission. I told you that Katie and I We're at Sylvan Lake that day when Hayden had his accident. I'm going to walk you through something I share with my son because I guess let me give you some backstory. The reason I wrote this down is I use the Notes app in my phone quite a bit, and when my son asks me, why is everything being ripped from me, he's beginning to question, does God even see me anymore? And here's what played out. This is just what I wrote in my notes. 10:24, I got a text from the printer needing to talk. Those of you know I wrote a book. Katie and I self-published it, so I hired a printer to print it. And we're out in the middle of the hills, and I get a text. We don't have service, but sometimes you still get a text. It's annoying, but you get a text, and it's like this taunting, you don't have service, but guess what? I need communication. So I can't return the phone call, but we're out with the family enjoying the hills. 10:40, I drop everyone off at Sylvan Lake, literally, quite literally, get out of the car, please. I got to go make a phone call because if this can't get printed, that means the church can't have access to the books. So I'm going to go drive to get cell service. Who knows where that's at? I'm just going to start heading towards Custer, and at some point along the road, my phone's going to ding and let me know I have cell service, and I can call the printing company and ask them, what in the world do you want? No gas in the car. I love my wife so much. But as I pull off the side of the road on my way to Custer, and I'm going to make a phone call, I glance at the gas gauge and go, uh-oh. I'm going to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere and create more problems. So now I've got to drive all the way into Custer. And then that's when I'll make my phone call. Call the print company. Guess what? They didn't really need to talk. Now I'm creating a list of people that I don't like anymore. 11:05, my card keeps getting declined in the stupid gas machine. So it takes forever to get gas. 11:17, after I've gassed up, called the printing company. They didn't need anything. And yes, got some snacks because that's my weakness. 11:18, as I'm driving away, I just have this thought. Call Hayden. He needs to remember he's going to the barber. He needs to tip the barber. Yes, we're training our kids. Like, this is how you live life. And sometimes he's doing things on his own. He needs to remember, like, tip them. My best guess is 45 seconds to 60 seconds before I round a corner and I lose service, I get a text. I wrecked. I'm scared. Literally 45 more seconds, I don't get that text till hours upon hours later. So I call him. Because I can. And that little blip on that road. And if you don't know Hayden, he has a speech block. It's not always easy for him to say what he wants to say. I said, what can I do for you, son? And he asked if I'd call 911. And so I was able to call 911 for him. My son lost his car. He sat out multiple football games, got COVID, grades tanked because of it, and struggled. But I had to show him, God did give you a gift in all of this. He saw you and knew the one thing that you actually really, really needed, and that was to talk to one of your parents for a few minutes. So I asked permission, hey, can I share this stuff with a few of my friends? He said, of course. In fact, let me get real personal with you. This is our text exchange amongst, I'm not showing you everything. And here's what he said. I said, Hayden, what would you tell Hayden before all of this? What would you tell him? And here's what Hayden would say. The unexpected happens. You may not even know why it happened, but it's for a purpose. Keep in mind, this is an 18-year-old. And I trusted God, and he provided a better car than I had. And that's a whole story for another thing, but he does. He has got a better car than he had. I mean, come on. That doesn't always happen for those of you like, Pastor said that it gets better. And so my pastoring mind clicked in. Do you mind if I share what you learned? I don't mind for sure. But then he followed up with something that you need to see, and it really messes with me. Even if the purpose of all my troubles was for your sermon, Like, wow, you're a good kid. What we've been walking, this all happened in September. What we've been walking Hayden through, I think is, forgive me for assuming something on you, is something that many of us have been walking through. Trials, tribulations, problems. And here's what happens in all of those. You get focused on one of two things. The problem God is allowing, or the presence God is offering. And I don't know what you're walking through or whatever you will walk through the rest of your life. I don't know. I don't know those details. And many of them are not a big deal, and some of them are things I cannot even imagine walking through. And will God heal you every single time? No, the answer is no. Will God protect you from all pain? Definitely not. But what do you do in the midst of your trials and tribulations? James gives us all this incredible wisdom. One, go to God for wisdom, but this oozing all over through the whole book is, but God just wants to be with you. Are you cool with God being with you? And God will be with you, and he will see you, and he will know what you're feeling and thinking, and it may hurt, and it may not have all of the answers to why answered. But Christians, if you're a Christian, can we start saying the presence of God is better than anything? So James continues to write, and in verse 12 says something that goes a little bit beyond our normal life. God blesses those who patiently endure. If you're considering, am I going to endure this? God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. You're like, ooh, bring the blessing. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. The crown of life. Guess what my son does not have? Any kind of crown anywhere in his room. So this helps you understand that James is actually talking a little bit bigger than just this life. Sometimes we think following God is about just getting to heaven. What about knowing God before you get to heaven? What about a relationship with him where he's not someone foreign to you? And James is saying how you endure your trials has eternal ramifications, not just this. I hope that helps you as you walk through. James is so good. It's my mom's favorite book. But it gives us some practical things. So life is like, I'm having these problems. What do I do? How do I solve this? What's the money problem and the relationship problem and the job problem and the house problem? No. Just go to God for wisdom and trust that his presence is going to be good enough, and that's all you actually do need.